Okay, good afternoon, White Plains. Good afternoon, everybody. Going to take just a couple of minutes to let everybody jump on. Thank you very much to Dr. Debbie Hand, Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction, for taking the time out this afternoon to join me for our community update and COVID-19 Q&A. Thanks as well to all of our parents and guardians who took the opportunity to send questions in so that we could do our very best to answer those questions for you. I also, as I typically do, and I think it's important that we do this, I also want to take a moment to thank all of our parents and guardians, our students, our faculty, support staff members, all of our administrators, the Board of Education, and everybody in the White Plains City School District community who's working so hard to make sure that our school district has what it needs to be able to operate and be able to keep all of our educational community members safe and healthy. It has been a Herculean task. It has been a long road. We've all been traveling on it together. And here we are on the 15th of October. And I think that it is absolutely appropriate to state that without all of the support from all of you and all of our community members, we would not be where we are today. Imperfect as it may be, I can tell you that I am thrilled that our facilities continue to remain open and that we're able to serve our children, and that we're also able to make adjustments and learn from our community members, from our faculty and staff members, our administrators, our students, about how we can better serve our kids on a daily basis. So there's a lot of thank you, there's a lot of gratitude to go around, and I'll be the first one to continue to say it because it is important. And I also know that there's a lot of stress and there's a lot of uncertainty and frustration. It is not easy for moms and dads and grandmas and grandpas and older brothers and older sisters and aunts and uncles to be working with children in a remote learning environment. It is not easy for faculty and staff members to be instructing students in a remote and or hybrid environment. None of these things are easy. And they're taking a lot of energy and a lot of ingenuity and creativity to be able to happen on a daily basis. So from us, and certainly I can tell you from the Board of Education, we're really grateful for all of that hard work. As we're moving through the academic year, as I have said in the past, and I'll say it again, please remember where we are today is not where we want to be or where we're necessarily going to be in the future. And I know, and I'll address this during our Q&A, many questions about, well, how long, Joe, how long do we have to be in hybrid? Or how long will remote be a thing? How long until we can welcome children back into the classroom, more children on a daily basis, more often? And I'll do my best to answer a little bit of that today as well. Really important website. Our district website has a ton of important information. A lot of frequently asked questions are answered on that website, on those web pages. All of our videos, all of our reopening committee meeting videos, all of our Facebook Live videos, everything is there and everything is cataloged for you to be able to peruse whenever you want. So please make sure you use the website often. And if there's additional information that you require, don't hesitate to reach out to us at any time. Connecting with schools, connecting with your children's teachers, with the principals, really important as well. Don't ever feel like you're being a burden or feel like, hey, I don't want to call the school. I don't want to tell them. Don't ever feel that way. We want you to let us know how things are going. We want you to let us know what you're thinking, what recommendations you might have, what's working well, what's not working well. That's important to us. And we incorporate that feedback into our reopening committee conversations, and that, as we move forward, is going to continue to remain an important part of us improving our practice in a continuous improvement cycle. So do it. Feel free to reach out at any time. Also, really important, especially as I guess we're heading into the winter months. K-12 alerts. Make sure, please, moms and dads, please, guardians, make sure your personal information is updated in K-12 alerts. If you don't know how to do that, and you're not sure, reach out to your child's school, please. It is so important for us to be able to get in contact with you in case of an emergency. God forbid there's something you need to know immediately, And we don't ever want to come across a telephone number or an email address or that does not work. So please make sure you keep that information up to date and spread that message too, please, for all of our neighbors and community members who might not necessarily listen to these updates. Really, really important. Okay, COVID-19 in schools. COVID-19, unfortunately, is still very much part of our daily lives. And here in our public schools, it's no different. As you know, as many of you have seen, in our region, we've seen numbers increasing, still lower than certainly in the spring, but increasing, slight upticks. And you know, everybody has an idea for reasons of why that may be occurring. Regardless of what those reasons may be, for us here in the school district, we need to keep a careful eye on those numbers because we want to make sure that we're keeping our community as safe as possible and doing our part to keep community spread low. I can tell you that what we're doing in our school district is working in the sense that when we do have issues, we are able to quickly respond to those issues. We are able to quickly communicate and reach out to the impacted parties. Have we had issues of COVID-19 in our school district? Yes, absolutely we have. We've communicated those issues with all of the parties that need to be notified. And you know, unfortunately, we know that this is going to be the case. We knew it was going to be the case when we opened our school facilities to welcome back our children on the 21st of September. But we are still in a position, a solid position, where when we're identifying, we're able to communicate, we're able to take the appropriate steps to make sure that we're keeping our community members healthy as possible. So one of the questions that folks had asked was, you know, well, how many cases have we had in the district? And we've had in terms of in our facilities, confirmed cases of COVID-19, I believe right now we're at 4 or 5. Not all children, not all adults, and not all in the same schools. Those classrooms or those schools or those families that needed to be notified are always notified. That's really important to remember. You're never going to miss information. We'll make sure that we get it to you and make sure that we have that information for you to be able to view. You can also visit the dashboard, the COVID-19 dashboard, which is updated on a daily basis. One of the questions that we received often is related to closing or going fully remote, as it were. Sometimes you have a case of COVID-19 or a suspected case of COVID-19 and it impacts nothing. It only impacts the individual who is waiting the results of a test. Sometimes you have suspected cases or identified cases that impact one classroom, right, Deb? You could have a classroom that closes down and goes fully remote for 24 hours or for 48 hours, dependent upon contact tracing and the connection with the Westchester County Department of Health. And other times you're going to have a longer duration of remote learning where even a school, as we saw this week with Post Road Elementary, is put into a remote setting for a 2-week period of time, which is probably the longest period of time in terms of COVID-19 incubation and onset of symptoms and testing and so on and so forth that you would see. Unfortunately, this week we did have Post Road, unfortunately, put into remote for 14 days. And that all really, the reason why it's different and the reason why it's unique is because of the circumstances related to contact tracing. So dependent upon the individual who is identified as being COVID-19 positive and the interactions that that individual would have had, you're going to see, that's when you're going to see a larger response. And in the case of an entire school going into remote, that's as a precautionary measure to make sure that all of the individuals in that school community are healthy and safe. So we always try to be very conservative in our approach to these scenarios, and we work very closely with the Department of Health. As you know, Nurse Maggie Rasiopo is fantastic, and all of our nursing and health services staff members are amazing and are doing everything they possibly can to get that information out to moms and dads, and to make sure that we're taking the appropriate steps to keep everybody in the community safe. So that's why you're seeing those differences. Now, there was a question as to the number of individuals in our community who are presently quarantined. That changes on a daily basis as well, because once you receive your test results back, you may have been in quarantine for 24, 48, 72 hours, and then you get that negative test result and quarantine's over. For other folks, for various reasons, maybe they don't want to get tested, quarantine can last longer, it can last 14 days. We probably right now have somewhere between 35 and 45 people in some form of quarantine throughout the district. Don't hold me to those exact numbers, because they do shift and they do change. And it is literally a day-to-day, right? That day-to-day, hour-to-hour process in terms of identifying symptoms and also then following through and following up with testing and making sure that everybody's healthy and safe before they re-enter the school facility. So a lot of moving parts there. Deb, this has been a challenging week, right? Because you know, one of the things that we never want to see is a building go into full remote for an extended period of time, like 14-day period of time, 10 instructional days. The remote platform, though, that you and the committee and our faculty members and staff members have helped to create has really provided us with a new way to approach instruction, even during that type of a process.
Right, and the plan that we put in place, one of the primary reasons why we selected to move forward with staying with regular school schedules and moving forward as if it was a regular school day, and then adapting that instruction so that it would be appropriate for a hybrid learning environment or a remote learning environment, would be so if something like happened at Post Road on one day, the next day we wouldn't have to recreate schedules and change everything that we're doing to be able to go into a remote only. We could also, when the time comes to bring everybody back, move right into an all students back in school model too. So the model that we have is that flexible.
Yeah, and that was something that the reopening committee really was passionate about, making sure that our children would be able to move, and also that they were part of the class. So if you're a remote only student, you're not in a class with only remote only children, right? You're in your class.
Right, you have your own classroom teacher, you're not with a TA all day long. Our TAs are working hard to support our classes and to support student learning, but you're with your classroom teacher. And like you said, it's so important to be part of your classroom, because our intent is that when we can come back to school, we're going to come back to school and have all of our children back to school as normal as we possibly can, normally as we possibly can.
Right, thank you. Testing, school districts conducting testing has been in the news in the yellow zones, right? The so-called yellow zones, those areas in the periphery of the red and orange zones where numbers have spiked and schools have been put fully remote, are required to conduct testing. We learned over the weekend that those tests would be administered, will come from the state of New York Department of Health and would be administered in conjunction with local county departments of health. This is something that I know many of my colleagues, many of our colleagues in other school districts have been looking at testing and how testing could potentially impact the ability for school district facilities to remain open and perhaps even to welcome more individuals back. And it's interesting because depending upon what you read and when you read it, so for instance, I think the CDC just today came out, or yesterday came out with some guidelines related to testing in public schools, and it was not affirmative. It was not a positive view on testing in public schools. You can read other research where public schools or private schools are doing large-scale testing, and they see that as advantageous. I can tell you in White Plains, we are looking and researching the ability to offer testing to faculty, staff members, students. But we also recognize that that's a parental decision, it's a parent guardian decision related to testing. School districts don't have the authority to just wholesale test everybody for COVID-19 or any contagious illness. And so that's going to be more to come there, but I know that has been on the minds of many of our community members, and I did want to make sure that we were addressing it so that we are looking into possible opportunities. We do have partnerships that exist right now that we can leverage in the event that we do need to get somebody tested quickly. And of course, that's done through local healthcare providers. So if we had to, or if you as a parent or guardian are struggling with how to get that well done, you can always reach out to your school, you can reach out to us. And on the district website, in the reopening section, it does give you information on testing sites that are available to you that you would be able to utilize should you suspect that you or one of your loved ones has been exposed to COVID-19. lots and lots related to student achievement, concerns related to student advancement, or so-called COVID, or what is it, Deb? The COVID slide or COVID gap?
COVID slide.
Right, right. And this is totally, this is completely normal for parents and guardians to be concerned about what is my child missing? Is my child going to be behind? My older child was in this class in this grade with this teacher 3 years ago, and they were at a different place in their studies at this time that year. I'm really worried about what's going to happen. I'm worried about what's going to happen on standardized assessments. I'm worried about what's going to happen on the SAT. What about college acceptance? All these things, they're absolutely great questions, they're normal questions. And the first thing that I'm going to say about that is try not to raise the anxiety levels in yourself or in your home related to those types of issues. And Deb's we'll talk a little bit more about this, but just from the sense of wellness and just from the sense of where everybody is right now, all throughout the country, we're all dealing with the exact same thing. So the idea that my son, who is 7 and in first grade, is behind is not an actual thing, right? Because the curricular benchmarks and the guidelines and the frameworks are all created by us. We created them and we revise them and we change them based on what we need each year. What we've never done is created a curriculum or a framework that is to be used during a pandemic. So that's the work that we're doing right now. And that's the work that we engaged in our faculty and administrators and staff members engaged in over the summer. So Deb, talk a little bit about that. I know you've been doing a lot of research into this and you've been doing a lot of reading.
I've also been talking a lot to the administrators, to the principals, the assistant principals, and the curriculum coordinators, and just really making sure that we're looking at this from a growth mindset, from an asset-based lens, that students are coming to us and they're coming to us with, with their skills and their levels, maybe their reading level at the elementary school. And our work now is to move that level forward. So if you're at a B level in first grade and we want to see you progress through your reading levels, we're going to work and we're going to make that happen, with intentional instruction. And the same thing at the upper grade levels. I think that parents are a little concerned that curriculum is starting off a little bit slowly. And like when you think of how we entered September, we mentioned at the reopening committee meetings, and I know that you've shared with the community as well, that we really wanted to welcome our children back and make them feel comfortable back in a school environment. We also had to be sure that everybody was ready with their technology tools. So to make sure that everybody had the technology that they were using, that they were familiar with the learning platforms that they were going to be using, and any kind of applications that they need to use. In terms of, seeing curriculum as this, as this moving, entity that is just being covered. I don't think that we want to be at that place in this year. I think that we need to be thoughtful and we need to be intentional. Our teachers have done an awful lot of curriculum development over the summer. They've done curriculum compacting. They've done curriculum design where they're combining lessons or they're prioritizing various topics and standards. I know that Kathy Barpolis, our coordinator of mathematics for grades K through 6, she just shared a document with me that is the curriculum at a glance. And it has every single topic that we're going to cover through the year, fully laid out by the number of days that we're going to spend on each topic. And that's true of ELA and of all of the subject areas as well. I was talking with the curriculum coordinators today about some of the very content intensive classes up at the high school level, such as an AP class or a dual enrollment class for the high school level, and just really making sure that we're supporting the teachers in making those curricular decisions and following through so that, it might be a little bit of a slower start, but we want to make sure that we don't get too far behind and that we keep on moving forward. So that's something that we're constantly working on and constantly looking at. But I just wanted, to express to the community that we have our eyes on that. And as you said, everybody's going through that the same way. And we also don't know what testing is going to look like at the end of the year. Like there hasn't been really any decisions about New York State testing. We know that the AP changed what tests looked like at the end of last year. So we don't have any of that information. It's much too early in the year to expect it. But, but that's our work. So that's what we're focused on.
Well, thank you, Deb. You know, one of the things that we hear from correctly and justifiably from parents and guardians is the younger the tiger, the more difficult it is to spend time on a screen, on a device, to keep the child's attention. You could have, you know, Dr. Debbie Hand could be the teacher in that class, as engaging as you could possibly be. And then sometimes it becomes hard for a little one to stay focused. I mean, let's be honest. Those of us who've been in Zoom meetings for any longer than 45 minutes, myself, it's probably a 30-minute mark, you get a little fidgety. Is it okay for children to take breaks? Is it okay to communicate with the teacher about what you're seeing or what you're hearing about or what your child's telling you?
Oh, definitely. And I also think that that's why there needs to be a balance between the synchronous and the asynchronous work. I think that expecting a 5-year-old or a 7-year-old to be on the internet all day long staring into a camera, I know when I get home at night, sometimes my eyes are shot from Zooming all day long. So I think that really working in that balance and getting everybody to realize that that balance doesn't mean that we're not offering more synchronous learning time, but it's an appropriate balance for children to engage in. And to make sure that we're presenting asynchronous work at a level that's going to inspire children then to work independently and then come back with a teacher discussion. That's the model that we put in, especially for ELA and for mathematics down at the elementary grades. And we're going to continue to work on that model and make sure that it's appropriate for children. I mean, can I say that remote learning is appropriate for children at any grade level? It wouldn't be my choice, but we're working under the circumstances that we have right now. And we're committed to making it the best, experience that we possibly can.
Yeah, thanks. And it is so important to also watch for those signs that your child is struggling or having difficulty emotionally. And if you do see them, let the teacher know and reach out to us and let us know. And we'll do everything we can to be as supportive as we possibly can. I have seen amazing things happening in our classrooms in a hybrid model when visiting at all of our schools. Amazing things happening in terms of differentiation, right? So making sure that Deb is getting what Deb needs in class and Joe's getting what Joe needs in the class. And if you're struggling or if a child's struggling with that, just reach out, let us know, and we'll do everything that we can to be as supportive as possible. Liza Torres, who is my partner over here, many of you know, it's so wonderful. She actually came in with some additional questions that I think folks are putting in the timeline feed. By the way, I'm not being rude. I don't see the Facebook timeline feed. Debbie doesn't either. We're coming to you via Zoom so that we could be together. So here are a couple of questions that are coming through. When will the high school students go back to school for more than one day per week? And this, Deb, I think kind of leads into one of the things that we wanted to talk about. Because we get a number of questions about this. Not only high school students, right, one day per week in person, but when we think about our elementary age children at the 2 days AABD days per week in person, moms and dads want their children to be able to come back into facilities every day. And I'm right there with what are some of the challenges that school districts are facing, and particularly some of the challenges, of course, that we face in being able to make that happen immediately?
Well, I think at the high school level, especially at the high school in Highlands, it was really a density and a square footage concern and a safety concern, right? So we had these parameters that were put upon us of mask wearing and 6-foot distance. And when we calculated for each classroom what their square footage was and how many students would be able to fit into each classroom, and then we also made an adjustment to the schedule. High school administrators made an adjustment to the schedule. Instead of 1 lunch period, they were able to carve out 2 lunch periods and still maintain the schedule of classes that they had, so that we could invite more, we can invite as many children as we possibly could get in, because common spaces are also a concern for the square footage. So you need to be able to seat all the children for lunch and have them 6 foot apart as well. So I think Emerly Martinez, the principal of the high school, was saying at our last reopening meeting that there are approximately 500 to 550 students in at the high school on any given day. And, talking with Sarah Hall, the assistant principal, and just of how much space they have for entry, dismissal, for lunching the children, that they really do feel like where they're at right now with 1 day a week is where they can stay for right now. We're constantly exploring the possibility of bringing in more students. I know one of the parents reached out to us through email with an idea that I want to share with the high school. So, we are looking. It's not like we're saying that this is the model that we're going to stay with and we can't do anything else. But with the structure that we have and the schedule that we maintained and the fact that we were able to carve out that second lunch period, but in order to maintain the schedule, we could only do the 2 lunch periods, that's really where it comes into play. And then I know that we'll have some parents or some students will say, oh, I had less than a handful of students in one class and I had 10 students in another class. Well, we've explained since the beginning, all that needs to work together. So you're not only looking at isolate classes, you're looking at the entire schedule and how that building fills throughout the entire day, and then making sure that those safety precautions are in every single situation that the children encounter themselves in.
Right, so thanks. And there are a number of situations that school-age children find themselves in every day that in typical circumstances you'd never think about. Using the restroom, walking down a hallway, recess, cafeteria, transportation to and from, in the stairwells. All of these areas we had to painstakingly work to do the very best we can to make sure that in any of those scenarios, in any of those situations, the health safety guidelines are being followed. And that, of course, is a challenge, right? And so sometimes you are going to see differences in class size, for sure. There have also been times where moms and dads have experienced their child not feeling well. And that was a child's hybrid day, and the child stayed home that day, or and did remote that day. So there are a lot of moving parts. I think the real salient point there is to continue to share with our moms and dads and community members that where we are today is not where we plan to be, going into the future. And we are every week looking at possible scenarios for being able to bring more children back more often and be safe. The other piece that we've been doing it so long, I know I forget about it sometimes, is that we are still operating under an executive order. We are in our region still in so-called phase 4, according to the governor's executive order. That phase comes with a percentage percentage points of which I had nothing to do in terms of the creation of being able to stay in phase 4 if you move back to phase 3. The frustration for people, and then this is everybody, is okay, well, what about a prospective look? What's the percentage when we move out of phase 4 and into phase 5? What are we looking for? What are the indicators? What are the indicators for success in terms of combating COVID-19 that get us to the next step? Now, unfortunately, and I'm being very candid with you, unfortunately, I don't have the answer to that question. That's not something that is developed here in the White Plains City School District. I'd be more than happy to be part of that process, and I know Debbie would too. But for moms and dads who are thinking about this, the White Plains City School District and our reopening committee, we are projecting of what things could look like moving forward and how we would be able to do it, just like we did in terms of projecting what a reopening could look like. Because remember, we didn't get the guidelines from the state of New York for reopening until when? Deb, it was like August 1st.
August, yeah, August.
So we are mindful of that. We learned, right? We learned that we need to be able to be thinking sort of outside of the box, thinking and reimagining what things could look like or imagining what things could look like. And then once we get the parameters by which we have to adhere, moving forward that way. So just know that the reopening committee is continuing to struggle with a lot of unknowns related to what the next phase or so-called phase looks like. Another question was related to Wednesdays. And I can't say, we welcome children back on the 21st September. Every Wednesday since that time has been an important day. It's been an important day for certainly faculty and staff members in making those critical connections with parents, guardians, their colleagues, for planning, the professional development aspects. All of those things are really important. But there's another piece to this that I want to share with everyone. They've been like fire breaks. They've actually been like fire breaks. So in talking to our nurses, those Wednesdays and Saturdays and have helped us with contact tracing and have helped us to be able to stop any potential spread or cross you know, crossing of cohorts. It's really been something else in terms of our ability to combat COVID-19 or suspected cases of COVID-19 in our schools. So the question, another question is about holidays, about Mondays, about Fridays, and half days. And, you know, if my child is scheduled on a holiday, I feel like that, you know, could we make a switch? Could we put those children into another day so that they're not missing a day? And I will tell you, and Deb will tell you, we're looking at this too. Ultimately, because every day is a fluid day, and this is anathema to what public school schedules are supposed to be like. You get your school calendar in September, you follow the school calendar, right? But every day, because of the scenarios that we're facing, whether it be classes that have to go to remote, or whether it be a school that has to go to remote, we're seeing these shifts on a daily basis. So we are cognizant of it. We are keeping that as part of our thought process moving forward, particularly as we go into the winter months. But you know, just know that we really don't have a solution that stands on its own as, oh, that makes sense, because every solution that you come up with, someone else or because of another factor is going to change the calculus and the outcome, right? Did I get that, Deb?
Yeah, you did. Like, we could fix one thing, and then before we know it, there could be a school closing that would then take that balance away from us. So I think that we're just taking it, you know, as we move through the calendar. We'll take a really close look at it as we move further into the school year. And I've already talked about the secondary level. We can definitely, if we still are in a situation where we are right now at the beginning of February, and our students are still coming in one day a week, and we see that there was an inequity in that, we can make that change. Obviously, that conversation is going to change if our students go remote only, or if we're able to at one point bring more students into the building, right? So that would change that equation, right? That would be different variables. And then the same thing at the elementary level. I mean, this will even out by the time we get to, you know, our holiday break in December. It will even out our days, but then I don't know what school closings are going to look like. I also don't know what snow days will look like at that point. So I think, like, if we just take it one day at a time and see where we end up, and to the best of our ability, we'll try to make it as balanced as we possibly can.
Yeah, that's another question that came up about actually the Thanksgiving holiday concerns. Folks are concerned about students who will be coming home from college or university or travel during that period of time. And is the school district considering potentially making adjustments to the calendar, to the schedule, or to the way in which instruction is presented following the Thanksgiving holiday? Yes, we are cognizant of it. We're thinking about it. We're aware. We are watching every day, and that will be part of the conversation at the reopening committee as we go forward, no doubt about it. You know, there are just some things that happen after holidays that we have become very accustomed to in the school setting. And certainly, you know, illness is one of those things, right? Where you have folks traveling and you come back, and just in a typical year, that's where you start to see your cold flu, you start to see the norovirus, you start to see all of those things, right, Deb?
Yep, I already told my sons that they're not allowed to come home. They have to stay in California and Colorado for the summer, for the holidays. They're not allowed to come.
Thanks for this question. To the questioner asks, is there a plan to increase the number of days in person? I think we covered that a little bit. What's the plan to address teacher personal days or sick days? And the questioner indicates that currently no instruction is provided on these days. I want to thank you for your question. What I'm going to say is, please reach out to your child's teacher or school, because during those days, you know, in a scenario where I might be sick, there will be assignments. There will be a substitute plan, if you will, if I'm not able to connect with you. So please just, you know, if you haven't done so already, reach out, and certainly you can feel free to reach out to Debbie or myself anytime.
Yeah, we're working on substitute plans too. I think the challenge that we have is giving them access to all the platforms that we have. And, you know, for good reason. I think that every parent would understand not giving them full access to like a teacher's Schoology account. It depends on, you know, if it's a building substitute that works in our district all the time, or if it's somebody that's here really on an interim basis. You know, just giving them access to all of our accounts is sometimes problematic. So we've been kind of grappling with how much asynchronous work should be happening on a sub day as opposed to how much synchronous work we could actually make happen on a sub day, and also the preparation of the subs to be able then to navigate through all those systems, right? Because we did all this professional development, making sure our teachers had the ability and the skills to work on Seesaw and Schoology. So, I'm working with Dr. Jackie Manning Campbell, and Scott Pepper in Human Resources, and we'll make sure that we strengthen our substitute teachers to be able to do as much as we can on days where teachers are off.
Thank you. And certainly a shout out to our building subs who have been stepping in and doing a real amazing job in supporting us and our children all the way, back since the spring, certainly, but definitely this year as well.
And our teaching assistants too, who step in often when teachers are out and to cover classes.
Absolutely critical. This is the questions, or these questions that were related to Post Road moving into remote. Was it a teacher or a student? Unfortunately, in this instance, it was an employee. I know we all want to know if a child is impacted or if an adult is impacted. And unfortunately, we can't, as you would imagine, don't share a great deal of information about the individual. But just to hopefully put your mind at ease, and certainly that individual is doing okay, which is great. Will older siblings of post-road children going to other schools need to be quarantined? No. And this is a great question because it prompts me to think of this, right? Debbie, you will absolutely be notified if your family needs to be quarantined, or if an older sibling needs to be in quarantine. Right now, not every child at Post Road is in quarantine. That's important. We are in remote, but that unless you were told individually that you have a particular situation where you're in quarantine, you're not. You're in remote right now, and that's an important distinction. And we apologize if there was any confusion there. But it's just so moms and dads know, and if you have older siblings, you're okay unless you've been told otherwise, and you don't need to be in quarantine. This one, Deb's too, the Post Road parent says thanks. The ease of transition into remote learning shows how the district's been thinking about possible scenarios. And thanks very much for giving us that feedback as well. So what's next, right? We talked a little bit about what's next. What is the future going to look like? Deb and I will both tell you right now, we don't know. We don't know what the future. One of the things that I've become very, very accustomed to since March 16th, 2020, and Deb has, and we all have, is a recognition that while we always believed that every day was going to bring something new, in this period of time, every day has truly brought something new and has brought a new problem or challenge that hasn't necessarily been solved before. So we get the benefit of a new day, and we get the benefit of working through a new challenge. So I don't know what the winter will look like. I know what people are saying it will look like. I know what their predictions are, and quite frankly, depending upon which channel you watch or which magazine or book or journal you read, they could be diametrically opposed. What I do know is this. We are not going to settle into any one place. We are going to continue to assess our program, assess our offerings, assess our progress, and make changes based on what's being successfully implemented and areas that we can improve on. So we hear a lot from parents and guardians, literally hundreds and hundreds of emails a week, which is great. And the feedback is really important. Homework is always one that we seem to have questions about. And how has homework changed in 2020, right, Deb? Because for some of our children, all work is homework.
That's homework, right? Because you're learning at home right now sometimes. So, I think that having that balance and making sure that children aren't going through a school day and then extending that into hours of homework. But there are times where homework needs to be assigned, right? There are projects that need to be done, essays that need to be written, texts that need to be read. But I think as long as it's meaningful and intentional, and I think that those were always two important words for me. And I think in this learning environment, they're even more important, that everything that we do needs to be meaningful and intentional. and we need to make sure that that's our delivery to, for our students. And, I think if we're not careful in that it does become overwhelming for them. And, we want to make sure that our children are able to accomplish what we're asking them to do with the right amount of support. And I do have to, just ask the parents out there and the community members, just, really check in with your children, especially your middle school children and your high school children. Make sure that they're not only participating in their Zooms and in the synchronous learning that's happening in their classroom, but that they're actually submitting their work to the teachers. I've heard a little bit of feedback, particularly from the middle school level, that there's a submission concern that our students aren't submitting as much work as they appear to be doing, because they're engaging in the lesson when they're working with the teacher during the lesson. It's just a matter of handing in their work. So if anybody could help out with that, I would appreciate that.
Thanks, Deb. Thanks to Liza again for being so quick. There was a question that was put up, Post Road was placed on remote, and GW, when there was a positive case, was not. How come? Great question. And that goes back to the contact tracing. It goes back to our ability to identify all the potential contacts in a school facility. And if we're able to do that quickly in a small contained cluster, then you're going to have a smaller response. If the potential exposure is wider and more expansive in the school facility or in the educational community, you're going to have a larger response. And that's exactly the challenge that you deal with on a daily basis when you're working through the contact tracing process, is that dependent upon how many folks potentially could have been exposed, it can look different every time. And I know that's frustrating for parents and guardians, frustrating for teachers, it's frustrating for support staff, everybody involved, not to mention children. So thanks for that question. The wellness aspect of what we're trying to accomplish here can't be understated, making sure that our children are doing okay, making sure that you're doing okay, moms and dads, and that our employees here in the district are doing okay. We've been working really hard to have supports in place to be able to offer those supports to folks should they need it. This is a reminder. Please take advantage of those supports. Please reach out to us if your child is in need. Please reach out to us if we can help you with something. We know how challenging this has been. And when we know that, moving forward with no sort of end date, it makes it all that more difficult. This has been 7 months of sustained stress and anxiety and trauma. And we understand that. We are prepared to help in any way that we possibly can. I can't say enough about the Board of Education's position on this, and their blessing in giving us the ability to do what's needed to support our community. I also have to tell you that the White Plains community and the foundation of us being able to move forward has been second to none. Right? That we wouldn't have been able to accomplish the things that we've accomplished in the last 7 months. And again, as imperfect as they may be, and I know folks have different experiences and different feelings on this, but taking a step back objectively, and as somebody who sees a lot of different examples of this, and a lot of different outcomes associated with these reopenings, I can tell you that without the White Plains community, the greater community, and all of our parents and guardians, all of our professional staff and support staff and administrative staff working together, we wouldn't have been able to accomplish what we did right now. So as stressful and frustrating and anxiety-ridden as this period has been, it's also been a time of real coming together, a time of a lot of love and a lot of commitment to each other. And for that, I can tell you we're really grateful. So Deb, any last minute comments or thoughts before we wrap up?
No, I wanted to say thank you to everybody. And I know that you thanked everybody when you started, just our teachers that are working so hard, and our teaching assistants, all of our nurses, and, our administrators and our curriculum coordinators. And, I can't thank them enough for all of the energy and effort and love that they put into this. And, I appreciate that the community has been appreciative. I also appreciate that they've given us some critical feedback that we constantly take in, and when we can make changes, we do make changes. So, it is a great community, and we're going to get through this. And, we're taking good care, great care, excellent care of your children. And thank you for being partners with us.
Thank you, Deb. And Liza just gave me one last question, I think, and I'm happy to answer it. Is there a possibility to bring back the paper handouts instead of not sending home or maybe sending home once a month, relying on emails or Facebook gets overlooked so easily? We missed photo day because there was no communication. Well, thanks for this feedback. I would say, sure, there absolutely is a way to be able to send home paper handouts. Maybe not every handout, but this is definitely one of those areas I would suggest you sending an email to your child's principal or your child's teacher. It is true. It is easy to look over social media, particularly, by the way, if you don't like social media, which is totally fine by me, because if it wasn't related to what we're doing right now, there's no way I would ever be doing a Facebook Live. But that's really great feedback, and we don't want you to miss anything. The one thing I can also say is you can always check on the district website or your school's website for upcoming events. But the K-12 alert system, that's the thing. If you were in your K-12 alert system, are getting both emergency information and information, just informational, you would have gotten updates related to Picture Day. I know because I got them all. So please make sure those K-12 alerts, those K-12 accounts are up to date, and paper is always a possibility too. Thanks for that question. Finally, there is going to be a community, as we do every year, a community budget forum on Monday evening. That's going to be a Zoom meeting that you're very welcome to attend. And as always, if you have ideas or recommendations for the upcoming budget season, we do ask that you send them through budget@WPCSD.us, and that all that information is on the district website as well. And we're happy to take all of that moving forward. So, Dr. Hand, thank you very, very much for spending time with me this afternoon, and to everybody who tuned in, and to anybody who is watching at a later time, thank you for everything you're doing for our children and our community. We are greatly appreciative, and I hope that you all stay well and stay strong and stay WP proud. Have a great day, everybody.